The HOA wanted control. I refused. Then my car was towed, my home was vandalized, and one night they set my house on fire. But they made one mistake. I'm the most feared judge in the state. Watch till the end, comment your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more thrilling stories. The beginning of a war. A man who refused to kneel. It was supposed to be a fresh start. After years of long hours in the courtroom, delivering justice to criminals who thought they were untouchable, Judge Michael Carter was ready for a quiet life. A new home in Ridgewood Hills, a pristine suburban neighborhood just outside of Denver, seemed like the perfect place. It was picturesque, too picturesque. The manicured lawns, the identical mailboxes, the neatly trimmed hedges. It all felt unnaturally perfect, like a staged set for a TV commercial about the American dream. And then there was the HOA. Within 2 days of moving in, Michael got his first taste of what this neighborhood was really about. The doorbell rang. Standing on his doorstep was a woman in her late 50s, dressed in an immaculately pressed navy blue suit. Linda Thompson. Her hair was tightly pulled back, her nails manicured to perfection, and her smile too polished. The kind of smile that was rehearsed, not genuine. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," she said, her voice sweet but her gaze sharp. "I'm Linda Thompson, president of the Ridgewood Hills Homeowners Association. Welcome to the neighborhood. I'm here to discuss something very important." Michael already had a bad feeling. She handed him a thick folder, neatly labeled HOA Membership Agreement. "We believe in maintaining harmony in our community," she continued, clasping her hands together like a benevolent queen addressing a peasant. "We ask all residents to contribute a modest monthly fee and abide by our regulations to keep Ridgewood Hills the prestigious neighborhood it is." Michael didn't even open the folder. He already knew what this was. He had seen plenty of these power-hungry mini-dictators in court, people who use bureaucratic loopholes to control others. "I appreciate the offer," he said, "but my property isn't under HOA jurisdiction. I checked before I bought the house." Linda's smile didn't falter. Not outwardly, but something flickered in her eyes. "Oh, but you'll find that life here is so much easier when everyone follows the same rules," she said smoothly. "After all, we all want a cohesive community, don't we?" Michael leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Rules are great, but only when you actually agree to follow them." Linda's fingers twitched. For a brief second, her mask slipped, and Michael caught a glimpse of something cold underneath. Then just as quickly she recovered. "Well," she said, her smile returning but tighter this time, "I'm sure you'll reconsider. Everyone does." And with that, she turned and walked away. A new home and an unseen enemy. At first, Michael thought that was the end of it. Then the letters started. Every day, a new notice from the HOA appeared in his mailbox, demanding he pay the membership fee, $600 per month. Each time, he tossed them straight into the trash. Then the fines arrived. $200 for leaving his trash cans out too long. $500 for improper landscaping, because his lawn wasn't exactly 2.5 inches tall. $1,000 for non-approved exterior modifications, because his front door was the wrong shade of brown. Each time, Michael sent them a legal response. "I am not under HOA jurisdiction. Stop harassing me." But the real games hadn't even begun. The silent war begins. One morning, Michael stepped outside to find his trash still sitting there, even though every other house had their bins emptied. A coincidence? No chance. That same night, he heard the sound of a tow truck outside his house. By the time he rushed outside, his car was already hooked up and being towed away. "What the hell are you doing?" he demanded. The tow truck driver, a scruffy man with a cigarette dangling from his lips, shrugged. "Illegal parking violation, sir. I parked in my own damn driveway. HOA rules say street parking is restricted. This is my driveway." But the man just sighed, handed him a $500 ticket, and drove off. Michael clenched his jaw. Linda was testing him. She expected him to crack, to fold under pressure like the dozens of other residents she had bullied into submission. But she had made one critical mistake. She had no idea who she was dealing with. The HOA's next move, escalation. Michael refused to break. He fixed every problem they threw at him. He cut his lawn, but left it 2.6 inches tall just to piss them off. He painted his front door again, but chose an even bolder shade that stood out even more. He started filing legal counterclaims, using his knowledge of property law to challenge every fine they issued. And then, things got personal. One night around 2 a.m., Michael woke up to a sharp scratching noise outside his house. He grabbed his handgun, because this was still America after all, and crept toward the front door. Footsteps. By the time he swung the door open, whoever had been there was gone. But in the morning, he found deep key scratches running down the side of his car. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was intimidation. And the message was clear: get in line or get out. But Michael wasn't going anywhere. What he didn't know was that the HOA was about to take things to a whole new level, and soon he would wake up to a fire. The fire that changed everything. Michael Carter thought he had seen the worst of Ridgewood Hills HOA. The petty fines, the ridiculous rules, the harassment, but nothing could have prepared him for what was about to happen next. A normal night. Until it wasn't. It had been a long day in court. Michael had spent the entire afternoon overseeing a particularly brutal case involving a corporate fraudster who had embezzled millions. The kind of case where the defendant smirked in court, thinking his money would save him. Michael had wiped that smirk off his face with a 20-year prison sentence. Now, all he wanted was a quiet night at home, with a glass of bourbon and some blues playing softly in the background. As he sank into his armchair, the warmth of the whiskey easing the tension in his shoulders, a faint smell reached his nose. A burning smell. At first he thought it was just a candle left burning, or maybe one of the neighbors grilling late at night. Then he saw it, a faint orange glow dancing on the far wall. Michael shot to his feet and turned toward the front window. His house was on fire. The escape. The heat hit him like a wave. By the time he reached the front door, flames had engulfed the left side of his house. Thick black smoke billowed through the air, making it almost impossible to breathe. His survival instincts kicked in. He grabbed his phone and dialed 911 as he sprinted out the back door. He barely had time to snatch his car keys before the flames spread to the roof. His lungs burned from the smoke as he stumbled onto the front lawn, coughing violently. And that's when he saw her. Across the street, standing in the shadows, was Linda Thompson, arms crossed, expression neutral. No panic, no concern, just watching. Michael locked eyes with her. She held his gaze for a long, chilling second, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. Too late to save anything. The fire trucks arrived minutes later, but it was already too late. Michael stood there watching as years of his life were reduced to ashes. His furniture, his books, his case files, even his grandfather's war medals, all gone. And yet, amidst the devastation, rage burned hotter than the flames. Because Michael knew this wasn't an accident, the HOA had escalated from fines to harassment. Now they had resorted to destruction, but what they didn't know was that they had just picked a fight with the wrong man. The investigation begins. By the time the fire department finished, the lead investigator, a grizzled fire marshal named Tom Wexler, approached Michael with a grim look. "Mr. Carter, we've ruled out electrical issues or gas leaks. This wasn't an accident." Michael expected as much. "Arson?" he asked flatly. Wexler nodded. "Looks like someone started the fire along the side of the house. Used an accelerant, probably gasoline." Michael didn't hesitate. He turned and pointed directly at Linda's house. "She did it." Wexler's eyes followed his gesture, but he frowned. "We'll need evidence before we make any accusations." Evidence. Michael could get that, because he knew exactly how to catch criminals. Tracking the arsonists. The next morning, Michael wasted no time. He began talking to neighbors, looking for anyone who saw or heard something. Most were too afraid to talk. But then one elderly man, Mr. Roberts, reluctantly spoke up. "Look, I don't want any trouble," he murmured, glancing over his shoulder. "But I heard voices that night, footsteps near your house. Thought I was just imagining things, but now—" Michael nodded. That was enough to start with. Now he needed footage. The key to everything, security footage. A few houses had security cameras facing the street. Michael spent hours knocking on doors, negotiating, persuading, and then, finally, a man down the block handed over a flash drive. "Check this out. My camera caught something suspicious at around 2 a.m. Michael plugged it into his laptop and hit play. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Three figures in hoodies approached his house. One of them carried a gas canister. And then, a single spark. Within seconds, flames erupted. Michael paused the video, zooming in on one of the figures. And that's when he saw it. A shiny necklace. A distinct, unmistakable pendant. One he had seen before. On Linda Thompson's neck. Michael exhaled slowly. The HOA wasn't just playing dirty anymore. They had committed a crime. And now? Now it was time for him to destroy them. The breaking point. A man pushed too far. Michael Carter had faced criminals, con men, and killers in his career as a judge. But never had he encountered an enemy quite like this. His house was gone, his possessions destroyed, and the people responsible? Still walking free, but not for long. Michael was about to remind Linda Thompson and her HOA goons what happens when you mess with the wrong man. The investigation takes a turn. Michael didn't sleep that night. He sat in his temporary motel room, staring at the security footage over and over. There they were, three hooded figures, creeping toward his house like rats in the dark. The gas canister, the flames, the unmistakable glint of a necklace. Linda's necklace. He knew it was her, but knowing wasn't enough. He needed undeniable proof. Someone tries to silence him. The next morning, Michael drove straight to the police station to hand over the footage. He barely made it there. As he pulled onto a quiet road, a black SUV suddenly appeared in his rearview mirror. Too close, too fast. Before he could react, bam! The SUV slammed into the back of his car, forcing his wheels off the pavement. Michael's heart pounded. Another hit, harder this time. Whoever was behind him wasn't just tailgating, they were trying to kill him. Michael's instincts kicked in. He yanked the wheel hard to the right, narrowly avoiding a spinout. He floored the gas pedal, pushing his car to the limit. The SUV stayed right on him, relentless. Then, up ahead, a sharp curve. Michael faked a swerve left, then at the last second, jerked the wheel right, cutting into a side street. The SUV overshot the turn, tires screeching, before disappearing into the distance. Michael exhaled sharply, gripping the wheel. This wasn't just about harassment anymore. They wanted him dead. Corruption runs deep. When Michael finally made it to the police station, he handed over the footage. The lead investigator, Detective James Talbot, studied the video closely. Damn, this is enough to start questioning people. Michael leaned in. Start with Linda Thompson. She was there. Talbot nodded, but there was hesitation in his eyes. We'll look into it, Judge. But HOA cases like this get complicated. Lots of connections in local government. Michael's jaw tightened. Are you telling me someone's protecting her? Talbot didn't answer. He didn't need to. Michael knew exactly what was happening. Linda had people in her pocket. And now, if he wanted justice, he'd have to take matters into his own hands. Michael's next move, digging into the HOA's secrets. Michael didn't go back to the motel. It wasn't safe. Instead, he parked a few blocks from the HOA office, waiting. By mid-afternoon, Linda arrived. She walked in like a queen, head held high, the same smug confidence she always carried. She thought she was untouchable. Michael was about to prove her wrong. Breaking into the HOA office that night, after the office had closed, Michael made his move. Breaking in wasn't hard. The security system was a joke, designed to keep annoyed homeowners out, not someone like him. He slipped inside and got to work. Paperwork, bank statements, financial records. And then he found it. A locked filing cabinet labeled confidential. Michael grabbed a crowbar from the supply closet. One strong pull, snap. The lock broke, and inside he found exactly what he was looking for. The smoking gun inside were years of financial fraud. Hundreds of thousands of dollars siphoned from HOA funds. Fake maintenance contracts signed off by Linda, but the money funneled to offshore accounts, payments to local politicians, cops, even a judge. And then, The final nail in the coffin. Handwritten notes from Linda. One stood out. It was a list of names, and next to his, solve the problem. Michael's blood ran cold. This wasn't just fraud. They had tried to have him killed, and now he had the proof to take them all down. The setup. Michael didn't call the police. Not yet. First, he needed to watch Linda squirm. The next morning, he walked right into the HOA office. Linda was holding a meeting. When she saw him, her smile faltered. For the first time. "Michael, I thought we settled this. You're not part of the HOA. Michael smiled. "I know, but I found some interesting documents last night." He tossed a folder onto the table. Linda opened it. She froze. The color drained from her face. Her cronies shifted uncomfortably, realizing something was very, very wrong. "You should probably start calling your lawyer," Michael said. For the first time ever, Linda looked scared. The final blow. Michael didn't give Linda time to react. Within an hour, he delivered the documents directly to the FBI. This was bigger than local police, bigger than some crooked HOA. This was federal fraud, corruption, attempted murder. The arrest came fast. Linda was dragged out of the HOA office in handcuffs. 3 board members were arrested for fraud and conspiracy. And the biggest bombshell? The crooked judge who had been covering for them was exposed. Within a week, the entire HOA crumbled. The neighborhood celebrated. For the first time in years, people were free. And Michael? He wasn't done yet. Justice, revenge, and the final reckoning. Michael Carter had won. The HOA was in ruins. Linda Thompson had been dragged away in handcuffs. The corrupt officials covering for her were exposed. For the first time in years, Ridgewood Hills was free. But Michael knew better than anyone. When a snake gets cornered, it doesn't just lie down. It strikes. The escape. 3 days after Linda's arrest, Michael was woken by a frantic phone call. It was Detective James Talbot. "Carter, we have a problem." Michael sat up, his heart pounding. "What kind of problem?" Talbot exhaled sharply. "Linda's gone. She escaped." Michael's blood ran cold. "How?" "Prison transfer. Van was hit on the freeway. Looked like an accident at first. But when the dust settled, Linda was gone." Michael swung his legs out of bed, already reaching for his gun. "You think she's coming for me?" "I don't think. I know." The hunter becomes the hunted. Michael didn't wait for the cops. He knew Linda. She wasn't just going to run. She had lost everything. Her power, her money, her reputation. And she blamed him for it. That meant she had only one thing left to do. Revenge. Michael drove straight to his new rental house, knowing she'd come for him there. He parked a few blocks away and watched. And sure enough, she was already there. A lone figure in the dark, a gun in her hand, waiting. The final confrontation. Michael didn't hesitate. He moved silently through the shadows, years of instinct kicking in. He could see her now, standing at his front door, trying to pick the lock. "Looking for me?" Linda spun around, gun raised. But Michael was faster. Bang! The shot missed him by inches. Bang! Michael fired back, hitting the gun in her hand, knocking it to the ground. Linda staggered back, holding her bleeding wrist. She looked up at him, her face a twisted mask of rage and desperation. "You think you've won, Carter?" She spat. "You have no idea what you've started." Michael stepped forward, his own gun steady. "I didn't start this, Linda, but I'm damn sure finishing it." She laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "You think you're some kind of hero? You're just like me. You wanted power and now you have it." Michael shook his head. "The difference between us? I didn't burn down anyone's house to get it. Justice. Again." The flashing red and blue lights arrived moments later. Talbot stepped out, gun drawn. "Drop the weapon, Linda." She hesitated. For a second, Michael thought she might make a run for it. But she knew. This time there was no escape. She dropped to her knees. As the cuffs snapped around her wrists, she glared at Michael one last time. "You should have just joined the HOA." Michael smirked. "Yeah? You should have just left me the hell alone." The aftermath. Linda was locked up for good this time. With additional charges of attempted murder and prison escape, She wouldn't see daylight for a long, long time. Her cronies turned on her, making deals to reduce their own sentences. The HOA was officially dissolved. Residents tore down the ridiculous signs and rules Linda had forced upon them. For the first time in years, Ridgewood Hills was a real neighborhood again. Michael didn't move away. He stayed because he won, because this was his home, and because no corrupt HOA, no power-hungry tyrant would ever control him again. Epilogue. A warning. A month later, Michael sat on his new front porch, sipping his bourbon, enjoying the quiet. Then he saw a car pull up. A man in a suit stepped out, holding a clipboard. Michael sighed. The man approached, smiling politely. "Good afternoon, sir. I'm here representing the Ridgewood Hills Neighborhood Association. We'd like to discuss our plans for rebuilding a new, more community-friendly HOA." Michael stood up, cracked his neck, and smiled. "Try it. I dare you." The man swallowed hard. I'll just be on my way." He got back in his car and sped off. Michael sat back down, took another sip of bourbon, and laughed.